From revolutionary heroes to modern leaders, the United States has had 47 presidents since 1789. Each shaped the nation in unique ways. Some built empires, others faced wars, scandals, and triumphs. Today, we'll go through every single one, from George Washington to the current president, in just 13 minutes. Let's dive into the timeline of American leadership. George Washington was the first president of the United States and is often called the father of his country. Before becoming president, he served as the commander of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War. As president, he set important traditions, including serving only 2 terms, and he worked to keep the young nation neutral in foreign conflicts. John Adams was the second president of the United States and played a key role in the early development of the nation. During his presidency, he signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which were highly controversial and limited criticism of the government. Although he successfully avoided a full-scale war with France, his unpopularity led to his defeat in the next election. Thomas Jefferson was the third president and the main author of the Declaration of Independence. One of his greatest achievements was the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the United States. He also sent the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the newly acquired Western lands. James Madison, known as the Father of the Constitution, became the 4th President of the United States. He led the country during the War of 1812 against Great Britain. During this war, British forces even burned the White House, making it a difficult time for the young nation. James Monroe served during a period known as the Era of Good Feelings, marked by political unity and national pride. His most important contribution was the Monroe Doctrine, which warned European nations not to interfere in the Americas. This policy became a key principle of American foreign policy for many years. John Quincy Adams, the son of former President John Adams, became the 6th President of the United States. His election was controversial and was criticized as a corrupt bargain by his opponents. Although he supported infrastructure development and modernization, he failed to gain strong public support and lost re-election. Andrew Jackson was known as the People's President because he appealed to the common citizen. He expanded voting rights to more white men, increasing political participation. However, his presidency was also marked by the forced removal of Native Americans, known as the Trail of Tears, and his decision to dismantle the National Bank. Martin Van Buren became president during a time of economic trouble. Soon after he took office, the country faced the Panic of 1837, one of the first major economic depressions in U.S. history. His presidency was largely focused on trying to deal with the financial crisis and its effects on the American people. William Henry Harrison had the shortest presidency in American history. He delivered the longest inaugural speech in cold weather and later became ill. Sadly, he died of pneumonia just 31 days after taking office. John Tyler became president after the death of William Henry Harrison, making him the first vice president to assume the presidency due to a president's death. During his term, he successfully annexed Texas into the United States. However, he often clashed with members of his own political party, which made his presidency challenging. James K. Polk strongly believed in manifest destiny, the idea that the United States should expand across North America. During his presidency, the U.S. fought and won the Mexican-American War, gaining vast new territories. As a result, California and much of the Southwest became part of the United States, greatly increasing the nation's size. Zachary Taylor was a national war hero before becoming president, known for his service in the Mexican-American War. Although he was a slave owner, he opposed the expansion of slavery into new territories. His presidency was cut short when he died suddenly after only 16 months in office. Millard Fillmore became president after Taylor's death and supported the Compromise of 1850. This agreement temporarily eased tensions between the North and South over slavery. However, his support for the Fugitive Slave Act made him unpopular in the North because it required escaped slaves to be returned to their owners. Franklin Pierce signed the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. This decision led to violent conflicts known as Bleeding Kansas. His presidency increased divisions between North and South and pushed the nation closer to civil war. James Buchanan served just before the Civil War and struggled to handle the growing crisis over slavery. When Southern states began to secede from the Union, he failed to take strong action. Because of his inaction during this critical time, historians often rank him among the least effective U.S. presidents. Abraham Lincoln led the nation during the Civil War, the most dangerous crisis in American history. He preserved the Union and issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states. He also delivered the famous Gettysburg Address, but was tragically assassinated just days after the war ended. Andrew Johnson became president after Lincoln's assassination. He disagreed strongly with Congress about how to rebuild the South during Reconstruction. Because of these conflicts, he was impeached by the House of Representatives, but he narrowly avoided removal from office. Ulysses S. Grant was a celebrated Civil War general before becoming president. He worked to enforce Reconstruction laws and protect the rights of formerly enslaved people. However, his administration was damaged by several corruption scandals involving government officials. Rutherford B. Hayes became president after a highly disputed and controversial election. A political compromise allowed him to take office in exchange for ending Reconstruction in the South. His decision to withdraw federal troops marked the end of Reconstruction policies. James A. Garfield served as president for only a short time. He was shot by an assassin just months after taking office. After suffering for several weeks, he died, making his presidency one of the briefest in history. Chester A. Arthur became president after Garfield's death. Many people expected little from him, but he surprised the nation by supporting civil service reform. He signed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which required government jobs to be given based on merit rather than political connections. Grover Cleveland was known for his honesty and opposition to political corruption. He worked to reduce government spending and supported limited federal power. He later made history by returning to office after losing re-election. Benjamin Harrison was the grandson of former President William Henry Harrison. During his presidency, high tariffs were passed to protect American industries. However, these policies were unpopular, and he lost his bid for re-election. Grover Cleveland became the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. During his second term, the country faced the severe economic crisis known as the Panic of 1893. He struggled to restore economic stability during this difficult period. William McKinley led the United States during the Spanish-American War, which resulted in an American victory. As a result of the war, the U.S. gained territories such as Puerto Rico and the Philippines, and also annexed Hawaii. His presidency ended tragically when he was assassinated in 1901. Theodore Roosevelt became president after McKinley's assassination and quickly became known for his energetic leadership. He was famous as a trust buster for breaking up large monopolies and regulating big businesses. He also oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal and promoted conservation, protecting millions of acres of land. William Howard Taft continued Roosevelt's policy of breaking up trusts and enforcing antitrust laws. However, disagreements within the Republican Party caused a major split between Taft and Roosevelt supporters. This division weakened the party and contributed to his defeat in the next election. Woodrow Wilson led the United States during World War I and helped secure victory for the Allies. After the war, he proposed the League of Nations to promote global peace. but the U.S. Senate rejected membership. His presidency also included domestic reforms, though he controversially supported segregation in federal offices. Warren G. Harding promised a return to normalcy after World War I. His administration became associated with corruption scandals, especially the Teapot Dome scandal involving illegal oil leases. He died suddenly while still in office, leaving many questions about his leadership. Calvin Coolidge took office after Harding's death and believed strongly in limited government. He famously said, "The business of America is business," reflecting his pro-business policies. His presidency coincided with the economic growth and cultural change of the Roaring '20s. Herbert Hoover became president just months before the Great Depression began. As the economy collapsed, many Americans blamed him for not doing enough to help struggling citizens. His presidency ended with widespread unemployment and hardship across the country. Franklin D. Roosevelt is the longest-serving president in U.S. history. He introduced the New Deal programs to fight the Great Depression and provide relief to Americans. He also led the nation through most of World War II before dying in office in 1945. Harry S. Truman became president after Roosevelt's death near the end of World War II. He made the decision to use atomic bombs on Japan, which brought the war to an end. Truman also began the policy of containment to stop the spread of communism and ordered the integration of the U.S. military. Dwight D. Eisenhower was a respected World War II general before entering politics. As president, he built the interstate highway system, transforming American transportation. In his farewell address, he warned the nation about the growing influence of the military-industrial complex. John F. Kennedy led the country during the tense Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the U.S. and the Soviet Union close to nuclear war. He strongly supported the space race and inspired Americans with his famous "Ask not what your country can do for you" speech. His presidency ended tragically when he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Lyndon B. Johnson continued Kennedy's work and launched the Great Society programs to reduce poverty and improve education. He signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, expanding equality for African Americans. However, he also escalated U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, which became highly controversial. Richard Nixon improved relations with China and worked to reduce Cold War tensions. He ended the military draft during the Vietnam War. However, the Watergate scandal forced him to resign, making him the first U.S. president to step down from office. Gerald Ford became president after Nixon's resignation. He is the only person to become president without being elected as either president or vice president. Ford controversially pardoned Nixon, which affected his public support. Jimmy Carter helped negotiate the Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, promoting peace in the Middle East. His presidency faced economic problems, including high inflation and energy shortages. The Iran hostage crisis also damaged his popularity. Ronald Reagan promoted economic policies known as Reaganomics, which focused on tax cuts and reduced government regulation. He played a key role in easing Cold War tensions with the Soviet Union. Reagan also survived an assassination attempt early in his presidency. George H.W. Bush led the country during the Gulf War, which resulted in a quick coalition victory over Iraq. He signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, expanding civil rights protections. However, breaking his "No New Taxes" pledge hurt his chances for re-election. Bill Clinton presided over a period of strong economic growth and budget surpluses. His presidency was marked by the North American Free Trade Agreement and welfare reform. He was impeached over the Monica Lewinsky scandal, but was later acquitted by the Senate. George W. Bush led the nation during the September 11th terrorist attacks in 2001. He launched wars in Afghanistan and Iraq as part of the War on Terror. His presidency ended during the global financial crisis of 2008. Barack Obama became the first African-American president in U.S. history. He passed the Affordable Care Act to expand health insurance coverage. During his presidency, U.S. forces killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda. Donald Trump focused on tax cuts, deregulation, and stricter immigration policies. He engaged in trade disputes with several countries, including China. He was impeached twice by the House of Representatives, but was acquitted both times by the Senate, and his term included the COVID-19 pandemic. Joe Biden took office during the COVID-19 recovery period and focused on economic rebuilding. He signed a major infrastructure bill to improve roads, bridges, and public systems. His administration also oversaw the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan. Donald Trump returned to office for a second non-consecutive term, becoming only the second president in U.S. history to do so. His administration has emphasized immigration control, tariffs, and America First economic policies. His second term continues to shape debates about trade, border security, and the role of the United States globally.